brings people back to
I'm
repentance.
so glad I'm not dating donated $100. Hypothetically, you have a son. He is pure, strong, smart, successful and morally straight. He brings home a woman literal mirror image physically, emotionally and mentally of yourself. Your reaction?
Yeah, that's a great question. What is your reaction?
Well, so I have to read that again. He is pure, strong, smart.
So here, I'll just put it in the easiest way possible.
Yeah.
What he's asking is this: if your son, who's straight-laced as can be, who you've raised up, brought home a woman that had your past, would you be a little bit skeptical?
No.
No, you wouldn't. And do you think that that's responsible?
Well, if she's assuming that she's a Christian, I wouldn't judge her at all, because that's judging. That's what I call judging someone from their past.
Do you have judgment for a reason. God also gave you judgment so that you can make judgment calls.
So discernment is what you're speaking of. Discernment is way different than judgment.
I'm not speaking of discernment. I'm speaking about judgment, not just discernment. Discernment is how you navigate the path. Judgment is how you call the path. So I'm asking you specifically about judgment. Wouldn't you make, if anybody says that there's a red flag for a person's past or something like this, they're making a judgment. They are making a judgment. And so the question becomes, don't you think that you would make a judgment with your own child? Now, it doesn't mean you couldn't see past it, but wouldn't you say, wait a second, before you do this, think about X, Y, and Z? Wouldn't that be a judgment?
I would definitely want to meet her, but I would also have such a deep understanding because I went through the same thing. And I know my heart with God, and God knows, and he judges the intentions of the heart. And God says that he's the only person that's to judge. So I think we disagree with whether a person actually judges and what that means. I think that's where
I have a question.
Yeah.
Would you prefer him bring someone else home? Say that she's still with her faith. She's still a Christian. Would you prefer that he bring someone else home?
Who's a secularist?
Who's a secularist?
Yeah.
Oh,
so your son comes to you and says, I want to get with this chick who has the same past you do, but is not a Christian.
Well, that's completely different. That's a different ballgame.
Yeah, I know it's completely different. That's why I'm asking you the question.
Well, I'll say this. I've dated atheists before, and I can't dictate who my son chooses. I can educate him. I can bring him up in the faith.
Yeah, I think you can. At 15 or 16 years old, I think you could.
Oh, okay. If he's a minor... okay, I'll use my sister. Right now, my sister's 17 years old, and she's speaking to a boy right now, and I don't know if he's necessarily Christian. I don't know his heart. But I just, this is how I, am a sister to her. I'm just like, hey, I know you guys are Snapchatting. This is her first guy, and I've had many boyfriends. So I just come with an open heart, and I'm understanding. And I'm just like, hey, if you ever have any questions, if he ever asks you to send nude pictures, or if you ever feel weird or like he's abusive or just anything, just know you can talk to me. Because sometimes we got to hit the floor before we realize, hey, this isn't good for me. And I've hit the floor many times.
Yeah, but this doesn't answer my question. It really is kind of doing everything but answering my question. Would you prefer that your boy brought home a Christian girl?
Yes.
Isn't that a judgment?
No.
How is it not?
You have to be with like-minded. Like, for example, if there's an atheist and an atheist, I'm sure they'd want to... they probably don't want to be with a Christian because they're totally different.
What does that have to do with anything I just asked you? Why would you have the preference that your boy brought home a Christian girl if that's not a judgment? How is that not a judgment? How could it even be construed as anything other than a judgment? You are judging right then and there that even right now, before it's even happened, you've made the judgment. Mm-hmm. That and why would you prefer this if you didn't judge this as being particularly better than the alternative?
Yeah, I would say it's wisdom and not judgment. Are you a Christian
so you
yourself?
have enough wisdom to judge?
No.
How is that not using wisdom to judge?
That laugh.
I think it is judgment, but like you said earlier, judgment.
No, hang on. Let me get back to this. Yes, I agree. It's wisdom, but it's wisdom telling you to use what?
Wisdom.
It's like God telling us, it's better to wait till marriage. He does that not to tell us what to do, but he says, I love you so much. I don't want you to be with someone and have a soul tie with somebody and be emotionally damaged. That wasn't meant for you. It's the same
He's making
thing.
a judgment. God's making a judgment.
He's God. He can judge all he wants.
That's right. He's God. He can judge all he wants, but I'm asking you, if that's the case and he's making a judgment in his wisdom, how is it that you can determine that this is something that is done from your wisdom but is not a judgment?
For me, I've just dated so many non-Christians, it doesn't work, and it's a part of the main points of the faith is to date another believer.
You have to
Makes
be
sense.
equally yoked,
Equally
right?
yoked. Yeah, equally
I know what
yoked.
that is, yeah.
Making a judgment, though. That's my point.
It's a preference.
Awkward silence.
She just said it's a preference and not a judgment. That makes more sense. I just don't.
Oh, it's a preference. Well, why do you prefer that?
Well, I think it's easier. It's more. God doesn't want you to constantly fight with someone on beliefs. If they don't want to believe, we can't.
That sounds like a judgment.
It's not a judgment.